Dear content creator, are you running a business or just creating content? Because whether you realize it or not, the minute you start investing not only your time but your money into this, not to mention the minute you start to charge for your work, collaborate with brands, signing contracts, and the list goes on, you have officially stepped into entrepreneurship. Now listen, everyone talks about the glamorous side of content creation, how fun it is and all of that, but there are some parts of it that is not so much fun, but is necessary for you to do, especially if you want to be in this for the long run. So let's dive in. What up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Dear Content Creator. I am your host, Kairos Maggie. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Yes, another episode. I am so glad to be here with y'all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I do not take any of your time for granted, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or if you are watching me on YouTube. Welcome. Y'all, October child. She has been busy, okay? For October, it is Black History Month in the UK, okay? Yes, they celebrated it in October. It is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In the French Caribbean speaking islands, it is known as Creole Heritage Month. Anyone who's familiar with my content know that I have a whole playlist where we dive into the different Creole languages over there. So check me out at Kairos Maggie TV if you're one of those people who are very interested in languages and similarities between them, all of that. I'll link my other social media handle and page for you in the show notes. But also, y'all, in Canada, October is also known as Small Business Month. And as you can already see by the title of the episode and also just from the intro from this episode, we are going to be talking about the 101, I guess you could say, behind creator business, building a creator business. And I kind of wanted to pick up on an episode I did before. It was episode 6, where I talked about the business behind content creation. I kind of broke down some numbers in terms of what really goes into what content creators have to invest. Most of us, when we start out, we are starting out with no payment. A lot of it is us investing our money, and then it might take, for some people, 6 months up to a couple years before they actually see any fruit from their labor. And as someone who also recently started this podcast, starting out investing my own money, I didn't start off with getting any sponsorships or anything like that to get it up and going. That was money going out that I am looking to try and replenish as time goes on. So yes, I talked about that a little bit more in detail regarding that, subscriptions, all of what goes into what we invest in for content creation. But for this episode, I want to talk more about like actually running and building up a content creator business. And it's going to be pretty basic because everyone has different levels to their business. But these are the basic things that all of us as content creators who are running this as a business are doing. Or if you haven't already, this is what you need to be doing. Okay, so listen up. This episode is for you. So with content creation, it's always seen as being this very fun thing that we all do. We are showing our passion and sharing our passion with the world, but no one really talks about the ugly side of it, the not so interesting parts when it comes on to the paperwork, the actual setup and the processes, the real behind the scenes that also goes into the business, the invoicing, the waiting to be paid, the getting paid, but then having to pay people and the taxes, all of them something there. That is also part of the journey, y'all. And so I want to make sure that with everything that you're getting on this podcast, you're getting the full picture of what it's like being a creator. I'm going to also share some of my experience of when I realized, oh, shoot, like I need to register my business and all these things that I started to think about as I was doing this. So let us start from the top, okay? So what does it actually mean to run a creator business? So for a lot of us, when we start out, this is like a hobby. If you started anytime before the pandemic, you definitely did this firstly as a hobby, because at the time, a lot of the platforms and ways to get paid right now wasn't really there, or people were getting paid and making money as creators in that way, but the wealth of information at the time was kept very hush hush. Not a lot of people were sharing how they were getting money from affiliate marketing or the different ways that they were making money. They kind of just made it seem like this is something I do for fun and I enjoy doing it and I'm sharing it with my community because I love and care about y'all so much. But there was behind the scenes money coming in to keep that train running. And that's why we have people who are around for years to come, because not only have they turned a passion into a money making machine, but they've taken the steps to build systems as well so that they can keep this sustainable and keep it going as long as they want to. So that's one thing I would say that we can all agree on. The whole concept was pretty much I would share this interest I have, I'll post, build a community, and then if you're lucky, one day someone offered to pay you, and then that kind of kept the ball rolling for everyone. Fast forward to when the pandemic happened, a lot of us were inside. TikTok really started booming, and that's when a lot of people were making money online. And also that's when a lot of people were sharing more information as to how they can make money and how others can make money, because we were in a time that was very economically challenging. A lot of people were losing their jobs, and so people were getting very creative in how to make money. And for most people, that was through content creation. Now, y'all, not to toot my own horn, but kind of toot my own horn, yes, because as I should. But in the past 2 years, I've been able to make over $100,000 from my creator business. And I never imagined the day that I would go from making videos in my university bedroom and classrooms to now having this as something that brings me additional income. That is just wild and crazy to me. And if that is not a business, I don't know what is. So you tell me. There are some steps that a lot of us are not taking. And I personally believe that the minute, especially in 2025 and beyond, if you are thinking about becoming a content creator, this is no longer a hobby, okay? No one is doing this for shits and giggles anymore. No one is doing this just for vibes. No one is doing this just to share a hobby with online people and hope that they like it and join them in your journey. Like, there is more intention and strategy now for anyone who is coming up in the content creation world. Whether they explicitly say it or not, I want you to be very clear in understanding that. So if you're someone who knows that you want to become a content creator, start thinking that this is a business that you are looking to build up, okay? So the very first thing, and the reason you want to do this first step is because it gives you so many benefits when it comes on to taxes, when it comes on to invoicing, when it comes on to just having more legitimacy, okay? Is that the word? Legitimate. When it comes on to making you be more legit, make y'all pronounce today, guys, but register your business, okay? That's the first thing that you want to do. And depending on where you are, you might consider starting off as a sole proprietorship, or for some people, they might go immediately into just incorporating, depending on what business structure they think is best for the type of creator business they are building. I know a lot of creators in the finance space tend to go into incorporating versus others, such as myself. I would say at the moment, I'm technically still under the umbrella of sole proprietorship, and I'm speaking specifically for Canada. However, this runs in the US. I don't have any knowledge of it. You always hear the words LLC thrown around. I believe they also have similar business structures as we do here in Canada. But for the sake of my Canadian creators, because this is who the podcast is mainly for, there are two main business structures: sole proprietorship and incorporation. And you have to decide which one you are going to register your business under. Now, for some of you, your business might be named based on the handle that you use on social media, or maybe you will have an actual, what you say, proper business name for it. So maybe it is something media, or whatever you decide, y'all. Just know that that is the name of your business, so that when you're doing any business with the bank, when you're invoicing anyone, that is the business name that is going to always show up on your bills, your invoices, etc. So that's the very first step. Register your business. Now, before I go any further, I could not continue talking about how you can go about building up a business the right way without putting y'all on, because there is a perfect tool I have for you that can make you do this very easily. So let's go into my segment, Things I'm Loving Right Now. So if you're looking for a smooth process to get started in registering your business, whether it is as a sole proprietorship or as incorporation, I highly, highly recommend that you check out Owner. Personally, the reason I like Owner is because it is universally used within Canada. I remember the first time I set up a business, I used the Ontario government website, and trust me, that was not a process that I enjoyed doing, but that was the only resource I knew about at the time. And whenever I had to make certain changes, I didn't really know how to go about doing that. It seemed like just a lot of extra hoops that I had to go through. But when I found out about Owner to register my very second business, that was the tool I used, and the process was so simple and easy. I don't know why I didn't know about them sooner. One of the reasons I really love Owner is that not only that it makes the registration process easy, but it also has options that you can have minute book, like subscription that allows you to manage your minute book, as I mentioned, but also gives you access to make any updated changes that you need, whether it's to the name of your company or address different things like that. Of course, this differs based on the subscription service that you have, but this is something that is also optional that you can use. You can choose to sign up and just use Owner for the simple registration of your business, or you can opt to also have it as a regular subscription that offers these additional services for you. Basically, instead of you having to go through doing all of these things by yourself, of having to find a way to get these information updated, Owner has a platform that allows you to change it within their platform, and they change it on your behalf. So that's one of the things I really, really like. Another thing I really love about them is the partnerships that they have with other companies or subscriptions that will be super helpful for you, such as RBC, that allows you to be able to get a little credit whenever you open a check-in business account, and also subscriptions for bookkeeping, such as QuickBooks, and also insurance needs with their partnership through Zensurance. And the next thing is that it is super affordable for you to get started, especially if you're starting at the sole proprietorship level. So if you're interested in this, the information is going to be in the show notes. They also have lots of resources that they provide to you via their social media and also their newsletter. So check them out as an additional resource to help you on your business building journey as well. Now we've made it through the step of registering your business. If you want to figure out which business structure is right for you, I would recommend talking to a professional who can better advise you. But also you can find information online also through Owner. They will break it down for you to know the difference in terms of the pros and cons between sole proprietorship and incorporation. I believe I also mentioned this in my episode that I talked about taxes. So if you want that information, go ahead and check out that episode. But again, speak to a professional. This is not going to be the episode to dive into those different structures. So put it in your homework for you to research. What is the difference between sole proprietorship and incorporation, and which one is best for me and my business? Okay. The second thing you want to do is open up a separate bank account for your business. This is probably the biggest thing I recommend that everyone do as soon as you register your business. And again, the reason you need to register your business is that in order for you to open up this additional bank account for your business, you need to actually have a registered business. Okay, so it's adding up now, right? Yes. So open up a separate bank account because it allows you to actually properly see money that is coming in and going out. I remembered when I just started out, before I even considered this as a business, I would spend so much money on subscriptions. I was making no money coming in. But guess what? that was money I lost out on that I could have probably recuperate when it came on to tax season, because it was money I was actually spending on a business I was building up. But because I didn't have my business registered, I couldn't open up a bank account to actually see money that was coming in or going out. I could not benefit from that tax write-off or whatever the case might be. So that is one thing I would say, super, super important. If you're trying to build something sustainable, it doesn't make sense to have everything combined with your personal income or expenses, because you won't have a proper way of actually seeing how you're doing financially in your business. It's important for you to know, how much a month do I need basically for my business to run, whether this is in overhead cost of, this is how much my subscriptions cost every month, so this means that every month I need to make at least X amount of money. That is why it's important for you to have a separate bank account for your business. And I already mentioned that I have an episode that I did about tax season. So y'all, if you want less stress during tax season and also reaping the benefits of that, then I would highly recommend that you go ahead and get yourself a bank account for your business. Okay? Number 3, track your money. I can't say this enough. This goes into what I mentioned about having a bank account. Once you have a bank account, then it is easy for you to easily track your money. And as I already mentioned, kind of segued into it in my second point when I talked about opening a bank account. The only way for you to really know how you're doing financially is in your business is if you're actually tracking what's going in and out. And you don't need anything fancy. A very simple spreadsheet is all that you need. Having 2 separate areas, one for income, you're stating the source of the income, the amount. Same thing for expenses. You have a section for expenses. What is the description, or like what is the expense itself, whether it's a specific subscription, you're naming it, you're putting the amount, and at the end of the month you can see, here's how much money came in, here's how much money came out. And that just allows you to not only be more organized, but again, it gives you proper clarity to know, okay, am I actually doing what I need to do to make this a sustainable business? For some of you, you're getting into this and maybe the goal is to eventually replace your 9 to 5 by going full time. You can't really know how much money you're making or how much money it costs you if you don't have a clear picture of that, and if you're not tracking those things. Because if you're someone like myself who's running or working a 9 to 5, you have an idea of what your regular expenses are for like your rent and typically how much you pay for food and all these different things. Similar for your business, you have to know these things, because now when you decide to leave your 9 to 5, that's a source of income that's gone. Everything is going to rely on your creator business. You have to know overall how much money you need, not only for the overhead costs of your business, but for sustaining your personal life, for your basic needs as well, with a little bit of luxury on the side if you're into that. Number 4, every single successful content creator has systems. And I'm not just talking about systems for making content. I mean, they have systems for everything to help them run their business. And with the rise of AI, there are so many people who are using various tools, various automations for them to do this. So in my 9 to 5 job, I work as a client account manager, and one of my biggest roles is to help with implementing processes and systems for the agencies that I work with. So SOPs, it stands for Standard Operating Procedures, and I do this every single day. I'm always either creating a new one or I'm updating a previous one, optimizing things that are working based on feedback or gaps and things like that that I see within the agency I'm working for. And so I've been able to recently apply that too for my content creation, because now that I want to have additional help with certain things, I can't hand off tasks to people who I want to bring in to help me with things if I don't have an SOP. You get what I mean? So you need to have an SOP for maybe how you go about publishing your podcast if you're a podcaster like me, or maybe you have one for how you do your YouTube videos. Maybe the only thing you will have to worry about is actually recording the video, but then you can have an editor who helps you with editing your videos based on specific guidelines you give them, and maybe you have a VA who helps you with actually uploading your videos, making thumbnails, putting descriptions, etc. You can't have someone help you to do this if all the information is up here in your brain and you don't have a way that it is translated for someone to be able to take over and help you. So SOPs is something that would be part of like building systems, but also having like templates. As a creator, you're probably going to have to make pitches, have a template for your pitches. I have a template for what I use when I want to make a prompt for an episode that I'm doing, and that just saves me so much time. I have specific things that I feed into my Claude.ai because that's what I use. I use Claude, and it helps me with coming up with content ideas or topics for when I want to do a podcast, and then I flesh out the ideas on my own to make it a bit more broader to talk about topics that I think would be important, in addition to having it help me with things that I probably wasn't thinking about. But that is a specific system that I have in place. Project tracking. If you are someone who wants to work with brands, and there are brands who sometimes have a specific timeline on when you have to deliver a campaign to them, you need to have these things in place. Give yourself a system that you can follow to keep yourself organized. And also that it's just there that if you have assistants coming in, as I mentioned, it is easily transferred over to them and you just continue to build on those things. Of course, there are other things that people have out there. People who are hiring team members, they have lots of people who are helping them behind the scenes with other things, but these are like the basic things that I want to mention that you, as someone who's probably a one-man show still, you can implement some of these things, and as you continue to grow, you can find ways to hand off certain tasks to people, even if it's on a contractor basis. And lastly, know your worth. Now, of course, not everything is about money. But the bills, the subscriptions, and all these things aren't going to pay for themselves. Something got to pay for it, right? And so that is where thinking as a business owner comes into play. And like knowing when it makes sense to accept free products versus when, okay, this needs to be a paid partnership actually, or whatever the case might be. You need to be thinking about ways that you can charge for your worth. Now, as someone who is going to be starting out, of course, there are steps to this. You have to kind of build up your portfolio a little bit. So what I would recommend is maybe your goal isn't thinking immediately about, oh, you need to pay me. Like, I think we're in a space right now where everyone's kind of focusing on that. I would say focus on building up a sustainable system for yourself and finding ways that you can compensate yourself without it feeling like you're giving more than you can accept, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you want to have a minimum that you're thinking that for specific deliverables, this is how much you're charging. And not everything within content creation always has to be in the lens of, oh, this is a brand deal. Like starting out, maybe you don't have a presence yet where you can start doing like influencer brand deals, but you can charge for certain knowledge that you have. Maybe you have certain information or background in corporate that you think would be helpful for people. Right now, the big thing that a lot of people have been doing is selling digital products. And so there has been this myth for a long while that you need to have tens and thousands of followers before you can sell digital products. But it's really once you have that trust factor, the credibility, you have the experience, no one can tell you it's too early for you to actually charge for valuable information if it is super valuable and you believe that people should pay for it, especially if it's there a lot of time and effort that you put in to also gain that knowledge yourself. Mix it in, of course, with like freebies here and there. But I feel like when it comes on to the topic of knowing your worth, for me, the way I define knowing my worth is understanding what makes me feel valuable. And it doesn't always have to be money. It could be an exchange in services. It could be an exchange in information, or it could be an exchange in just some sort of mutual benefit. So even if I'm not doing something at the moment where I'm getting paid monetarily, whoever I am partnering with has to be compensating me in some kind, like it needs to be reciprocal is what I'm saying. And so I would encourage everyone to kind of decide for themselves what knowing their worth might mean. For some of you, maybe it means that you're getting a credit. You know, if someone asks you to help work on a project for them, they don't really have money to pay you. Maybe you're asking for a producer credit or a director credit, whatever the case might be, anything that can help you level up and get you to the next step. Because not everything is going to be about that monetary exchange. It's not going to always be like that. But I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that because it will translate into how you're able to build up your creator business when you have to start thinking about actually charging your worth, you know? Negotiations is also something you will be learning through this. So start from early. How can you find ways to negotiate? A lot of us have to learn how to negotiate in our full-time jobs. How do you negotiate to get an increase in your salary or extra time off or taking a sabbatical? Like, how are you negotiating to do stuff like that? You can apply those same things into your content creation business. I really hope I'm making sense. I really hope I'm making sense because I just personally feel like the know your worth talk, it's so easy to like put it out there. And sometimes the people who you hear it from, it's kind of like, well, duh, like you've built yourself up to a point where you can actually charge your worth and know your worth and whatever. But for someone who considers themselves as a nobody, which I hope no one considers themselves as a nobody, we all have value. We all have something to offer at various different levels. It doesn't matter. I think at the end of the day, it's just important to put value on yourself so that no one can take advantage of you. And that goes across the board for if you're collaborating with another creator, if you're collaborating with a brand, whatever, an organization. If you know what your worth is, you will find ways to make things valuable for you or worth your time, your effort, whatever that looks like for you. Because as I said, not everything is monetary. It could be connections that you're getting access to, being in rooms with people that you would never be in rooms in before, so that you can actually build up that network that might lead to the next opportunity, to the next. So overall, know your worth. Know your worth and define what that is for you. Another part of building systems is be aware of when it's time for you to ask for help. Naturally, we can't do a lot of these things on our own. For me, this is something that I'm still learning. And of course, it will always come to that conversation of, but do I have money to even invest in hiring someone to do this? And you can kind of evaluate for yourself to see, okay, how much money am I technically wasting on trying to do this thing that I probably don't really enjoy doing, that I could be using time to do something else? These are some of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself. And there are various ways that you can find to outsource work to people. You don't have to be full-blown girl bossing and like hire people right away full time. You can start off with like contractor agreement on like a project basis. I've worked with a lot of amazing people in the past to help with like photo shoots, campaigns, website revamps, all these things. And these were things that I had to really invest in my business to see those things come to pass. And instead of always DIYing, it reached a point where you just have to hire people to help you. There are ways for you to fund those additional support. Of course, it won't always come from getting revenue through what you're selling or brand deals or whatever the case might be, but you can find other ways to fund your business. And I did an episode on this before. I highly recommend that y'all check out the episode where I talked about grants, how you can fund your creator business through grants, because a lot of the things I would say that I've been able to do in the past 2 years have been because of additional income that I received through grants. It would not have been possible without those additional grants that I got, where I could hire people to help me with projects and just different tasks that I am not the best person to do them. And this is like, for me, I just realized at some point I need additional help. I don't personally have the money. Maybe the brand deals money aren't enough to come and give me that help and support I need. What are the ways that I can find the money to help me in this? And Grants is something that I heavily looked into, whether it was through pitch competitions or programs. I went for them and I was successful in a couple of them. Like to date, I have been able to get over $30,000 in grants. So there are different ways to do it. Overall, I don't think you want to always be the smartest person in the room. You want to have people around you that can help you take whatever you're doing to the next level, whether it's going to be on a part-time basis, a seasonal basis, whatever the case might be. You can't do this thing alone. You have to have help. However, you can get that help. It can be through accountability groups. It can be through other creator friends that you guys meet and share with each other. Or it can be through hiring contractors that have skills that you can use your time to do other things. So when you talk about building systems, it can mean various things, but these are some of the things that I can think of when I am thinking about what does building systems look like for me. Maybe in another episode, we'll talk about how to actually build systems, and I'll see if I can get a guest who is more versed in that and talk about their journey of how they have built systems to help them build a sustainable business. The bonus tip I will end off on is always look for ways that you can diversify your income. In the same way in our personal life, we are trying not to put our eggs in one basket for everything. Whether it's your 9-to-5 job, you're already thinking, okay, if this doesn't work out, you already are looking at other jobs. You're always building up your skills to make sure that anything happens to your job, you're still hireable, if that's a word. It's the same thing with content, where there was a time where one thing may have worked for people that was the only thing they needed to keep themselves sustainable as content creators. But then as time went on, that thing wasn't working anymore. They had to find ways to pivot and diversify their income. And that's why now you're seeing more and more people are going more into selling their own things, their own products. People are building their own businesses. Like you have Mr. Beast, who was someone who would be one of the creators to get the most money for brand deals, but after a while, if brands can't afford him anymore and they're going towards paying smaller creators, like maybe hiring 100 creators, the same money they would have had to pay just him, he moved on to building his own business. He's not the only creator who's doing this. Many creators have turned CEO, and that should kind of tell you where things are going with the creator business. So just use every stepping stone to get you to the next level. And also, the way things were before is not how it will always be. So keep curious, be open-minded, look at the changes that are happening. You know, what I've been really learning throughout this entire journey so far is that it's not a one size fits all, but to always stay curious, understand how the economy, especially the creator economy, is changing, and find ways to adapt so that you don't get left behind. That's like one of the things I would say, like always be curious, always be learning. Don't just stick to what you know and think that that will be the end all be all, because as things are changing, you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to find ways to not only keep up, but like keep up with the times, I guess you could say. We know right now that the big topic is AI. And personally, I just find ways that make sense for me and that is still like ethical, that I can use it as part of my process, whether that's for booking people automatically, or I have an idea and I need help with like kind of fleshing out my idea a little bit more. So as I mentioned before, I use like Claude AI to help me with that. But it's not just solely relying on the thing that I completely lose my creativity. I still want to share my thoughts. I still want to make sure that everything that I'm sharing is authentically me, and having assistance, because the brain be tired sometimes. Sometimes you need like a little assist, a little assist any time of the day that you need it. Of course, with everything, things can get abused. People make it bad for others, but I think that's like the biggest thing I've been learning is just watch what other creators who are in positions that I want to be in are doing, learn a bit from their experiences, how they've been going about doing things, and try and apply it to my own journey however way I can. And that's what I would encourage you to do, because this is going to be a different journey for everyone. For some people, it's going to be like an overnight growth. Others, it's going to be a marathon, like a real turtle marathon that takes years. And trust me, it will be worth it. Speaking from 9 years experience, I really don't regret anything, because I think everything that I've learned so far along this journey has kept me not only consistent, but still loving this thing. And I'm continuously building, and it's only up from here, y'all. Like literally, I love the process of building new things and just seeing a new idea come to life, and how I can just make it bigger and better all the time as I continue to evolve in it. That is what I really am excited for this space. And as it just becomes more and more as a space for people to make a living and make money, it truly is exciting and inspiring to just also see what other people out there have been able to do. So as I end off this episode, I just wanted to do a quick recap of the things that we talked about. So remember, you're not just a creator. At this point, you're a business owner. As I said, the minute you start having to spend money on this thing, and then it goes to the next point where you're starting to make money, like, yes, you're a business owner. You have stepped into entrepreneurship. Own that. If you want to take this thing seriously and also be taken seriously, then you have to start from the basics of setting up yourself for success. So register that business, open up that bank account for your business, and also start tracking your money, y'all. Track that money, track that moolah, okay? And lastly, build systems that will make your life easier, and don't forget to know your worth and add tax, as they would say. And lastly, build systems to help make your life easier, and don't forget your worth and add tax to it, as they would say. These are the foundations that can start a passion that can turn. These are the foundations that can turn a passion into something sustainable. And the best part about it is that you can start off small and build one intentional step at a time. Now, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer this. If you're watching on YouTube, answer in the comment section, or if you're listening on Spotify, I'm going to add this as a question over there that you can answer. So what's one thing that you can do this week to treat your creator journey like the business it already is? Would love to hear from you all. Let me know in the comments. Again, it's going to be on YouTube and on Spotify that you can answer this. As always, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it and got some value from it, I would appreciate if you could leave us a rating on your favorite platform that you listen to your podcast. So if you're on Spotify, rate us. If you're on Apple Podcasts, rate us. If you're watching me visually on YouTube, subscribe and leave a comment on the episode so we can get pushed out to more people who can find valuable information like this to help them on their own creator journey. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.